I'll call to order the December 16th, 2022 meeting of Ag and Rural Affairs. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the October 18th meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? Motion to approve?
So, second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any public appearances for items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda review. Deanna, any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda this evening.
Okay. Agenda item 5A, conditional use request CU 2487-22 by Jeff O'Brien to obtain a telecommunications and utility conditional use to allow storage of construction materials on property located at 2652 South Seminole Highway. Why don't we start out with a staff report on this, and we'll see whether we have any questions.
Okay, so this is a conditional use request by Jeffrey O'Brien to obtain a telecommunication and utility conditional use to allow storage of construction materials at 2652 South Seminole Highway. The applicant, which is KGP Services, is seeking approval of a conditional use permit to allow KGP Services to occupy a portion of the property as yard space, storage yard space. KGP Services will be installing fiber optic network for TDS Telecom in the Fitchburg area. TDS Telecom is a large telecommunication company headquartered in Madison. KGP intends to lease a portion of the O'Brien property between now and approximately September 2024. KGP intends to deliver to the site, a store on site, and transfer to work areas reels of duct, fiber optic cable, splice cases, pedestals, vaults, and related materials needed for the installation of telecommunication infrastructure. The applicant also intends to place on site two 40-foot storage containers, one 40-foot recycling dumpster, one forklift, and various pallets. The site is currently paved with hard-packed gravel. An estimated 3 to 5 trucks 2 times per day is expected to access the site. So the current zoning is AX, exclusive agriculture. Number 3 allows for a conditional use of transportation, communications, pipeline, electric transmission, utility, including wind and drainage uses. Staff considers the telecommunication use as a conditional use under item number 3. The zoning code does not provide a distinction between telecommunications infrastructure installed on site versus temporary storage of materials and equipment used to install telecommunication infrastructure. If planning so chooses to permit this conditional use, staff suggests that the permit sunset on December 31st, 2024, for this use to continue past the sunset, or a new leaseholder, a new conditional use would be required. Staff provided the committee some additional information about conditional uses and also a portion of state statute that relates to transportation, telecommunications, these kinds of uses in farmland preservation areas. Staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit with a total of 8 conditions.
Thanks, Deanna. So the big question that I had in looking at this is that under AX zoning, neither indoor nor outdoor storage are allowed conditional uses. But in this case, it is staff's opinion, I understand, that there's no distinction drawn between whether these utilities are using the property for an installation or for storage. in that case, while storage may not be allowed for other purposes in AX zoning, you believe that it would be for utilities?
I believe that this is a gray area, and I think that because it is a telecommunication use, because it is temporary, I think it's a reasonable request.
Do you know whether this is something that the city attorney has looked at?
She has not.
Okay. It would probably be helpful if there was an opportunity to do that prior to the Plan Commission meeting, and I don't know whether there will be. But it would be good to make sure that we're clear on what we're doing here, because if we're granting a storage use for a utility, we need to be distinct that, what we're potentially approving here is not something that would be approved for other industries.
And I think that's a completely reasonable request. And of course, this is something that you all could table to upon and get further information from the city attorney.
Thoughts, discussion?
Ed, I hear what you're saying. Is it on? Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Could we move on this, though, tonight with the idea that your request is looked at and not table it, but move on this particular thing? I think the thing that caught me in this thing, and I was just like you, I was wondering, where are we finding this as a conditional use in AX? But quite frankly, the word utility hit me, and I'd like to see us go ahead and vote on this, and I would vote yes for it, and then move into your deal so this project can continue. To let it go another period until we meet again, I don't think that's going to meet the timetable that these people would like. So I think we ought to consider that. Yeah, well, yes, certainly the conditions that are stated here. Yeah, you could add a 9 to it. Yeah, I think you're right, Ed. We can't open the door without definition, and I think that's what you're asking.
Right, so if we had a condition that the city attorney review ordinance and determine whether she agrees with staff's opinion that this is vague to the point where this is not something that we should be fighting against or whatever. So I guess I would just put it as opinion of city attorney.
Yeah.
Definition of the city for the city attorney.
That this is appropriate under
Yes.
under the conditional use for ag zoning.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Other discussion on this, George?
Yeah, the only thing that comes to mind to me is this is a temporary conditional use. So I assume, without, talking to the company on this, that this is all going to be local install product? I mean, right. Not just like a holding area to go, elsewhere to where the truck traffic. I'm more concerned about the traffic increased on Seminole Highway for the residents out that way, of course, including myself. But I mean, we had issues in the past with speed traffic on Wayland and Seminole and signed petitions, and I don't know what it would take, but nothing ever gets addressed on that regards. And just because of the fact that there's 2 bike paths crossing right there, also, are on Seminole. And I know Seminole is going to be scheduled, or I think it is scheduled to have resurfacing in 2024. But I think the big thing to me is more truck traffic and speed limit, because it's just increasing the hazard and the safety of it. That's my only concern. I assume most of the traffic will be going south.
Should I go ahead? To answer your question, the application description describes it as Fitchburg area.
Yeah,
So I don't look for that to be outside of the Fitchburg area, which encompasses
Right.
33 square miles, but
right, and maybe a lot of it is going to be right on up there on Lacey Road.
yeah, and quite frankly, I don't see 3 to 4 or 5 trucks in and out of there a day
Well, it's twice a day.
yeah.
And then also, with the quarry traffic, that may, for building Lacey Road, there's a lot of gravel trucks every day, and there's also a couple of school bus stops right on Seminole.
Well, they've got a sunset clause in this.
Right.
So, we're not talking about
Yeah,
something
and
that's
I
going to be
just,
forever.
I just wanted to state that, and I don't know what it would take to address traffic, but I think it should be at least brought to the attention of, I don't know, last time we did that with the petitions on traffic speed, it doesn't seem like nothing really got done, just a lot of discussion.
We don't have enough police officers to even go there,
Right.
George. We're at bare minimum
Well, I just hate to see something happen to,
someday.
yeah, I know on our farm, we had one incident where a truck was totaled out and a person was hauled to the hospital. And that was years ago before traffic increased, just because of the hill and the intersection.
So George, one of the conditions, condition 7, is that traffic to and from the site shall be limited to approximately 3 to 5 trucks 2 times per day. So I think if you or someone else noticed that they were clearly exceeding that, this, you could bring that forward and this conditional use could be revoked. I mean, this is a condition that they need to meet. If you're
Well,
okay
it's
with
not
those
that-
numbers.
Yeah, it's not that I'd, police that, sit there and watch and count.
No, but I mean, you or your neighbors would notice if it all of a sudden is becoming a problem and they're
Well,
using it for far more things than
Yeah.
might have been anticipated, and they've got 40 trucks coming and going every day.
Well, there's the Vroman Road there and then four
Yeah.
driveways. and
Someone's gonna notice
It's difficult to get out or to get off of Seminole without someone, matter of fact, I did have someone plow into the van behind me when I turned in the driveway one day.
Yeah.
And that's, but that was their problem. I was okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this conditional use. Public hearing, or conditional use request CU 2487-22 O'Brien Farm and KGB Storage.
Second.
With the conditions?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
Number
sorry,
9.
With 9 conditions?
Yeah. And let me just get this for your approval, what I wrote. The 9th condition would be that the city attorney review and agree with staff opinion that this is an appropriate conditional use for AX zoning or exclusive agricultural zone.
Sound good?
Perfect.
Okay, so Roger moved, and who was my second?
Randy.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. All right, items 5B and C are a public hearing and rezone request, RZ 2455-22, as amended, and certified survey map request, CS 2453-22, as amended, for 2266 South Scion Road. Mark is not present, so let's just go ahead with a staff report on this.
Very good. This is a revision of a previously approved proposal for rezone and to subdivide. This was previously approved by Ag and Rural and then also approved by Plan Commission back in July. And also council did approve the CSM and the rezone also. What is changing here is that the first CSM and rezone, guess it might be helpful if I go ahead and get my screen up here. So the original, this is an amendment of what was approved before, and what is changed here is originally the farm buildings and the farmhouse was separate. Well, actually, the farmhouse was separated into a separate lot. Mr. Jones has determined that he is not going to separate the farmhouse into a separate lot, and the entire area will just remain rural or agricultural zoning, exclusive agricultural zoning, and he will only separate his daughter's house. So that's really the change here. Nothing else has changed in terms of his agreement with the Lorries and the Canes to take a piece of the property so that he can get the full 35 acres that are needed in order to maintain the exclusive agricultural zoning. That stays the same. Outlot 1 stays the same. And the reason behind this was really simple. Mr. Jones didn't want to go to the expense to connect to city water for the farmhouse, and he was concerned about animals on the city water. So he will maintain the farmhouse on well water. He does have to sign a well waiver that just says that if there's any changes, such as a rezone, that he would have to connect to city water. So the staff does recommend approval of the rezone and the certified survey. Nothing really changed other than that waiver for staying on the well. So it's number 14 on the certified survey. Lot 1 shall execute a compulsory water connection waiver and shall remain in effect until such time that it's no longer zoned exclusively.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
that's my deal.
Thanks, Deanna. Questions or discussion?
Deanna, so Lot 2 stays the same? That's where his daughter's house is?
Yes, that's exactly the same.
Yeah. And then the buildings that are outlined up there were originally in what Mark wanted, right there, yeah.
Well, actually, as I recall, he was just going to create a 1 acre lot around the farmhouse, and he was going to leave the farm buildings in
Okay.
exclusive agriculture.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Any further discussion? Motion?
I'll make a motion again. I'd like to make a motion to accept rezone request RZ 2455-22 amended and certified survey map request certified survey 2453-22 amended at 2266 South Scion Road.
So we should take those two separately. So
Separately.
let's start with the rezone with the 4 conditions as noted.
Yes,
Raj?
yes, with the 4 conditions.
Okay. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Amy. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The certified survey map?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the amended certified survey map request CS 2253-22.
2453.
Yeah, 2453-22 amended, 2266 Cyene Road.
With the 14 conditions?
Yes.
I'll second.
Seconded by Amy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're on to item 5D. This is a pre-conference request, so there's no action that would be taken on this tonight, for potential land division and rezone on lands along Whalen Road owned by the Lacey Living Trust. Would you like to speak on that?
Or is it advertised? You gotta believe that there's somebody out there.
So I see you had a map.
If you
As
can,
part of
just
the-
state your name and address for the record.
My name, Joe Lacey. My current address, 30 West Church Street, Belleville, Wisconsin. I grew up at 5903 Whalen Road, though, so.
I'm aware of that.
Sure.
All right, so tell us a little bit about what you'd like to do.
So across Whalen to the north side of Whalen from our household, there's a long driveway and then a wooded area at the top of the hill. And the idea is to put a house, a small residence, up in the woods. Just basically at the north side of the line separating, it's 2 plots is that property. So basically, right on the south line of the north property is right at the bottom of the woods, is the idea to put a house there. Not even really a house, a very small house, tiny house as it would be. It's all the rage.
Deanna, can you show us on the map? I couldn't get this from the staff report, just exactly where
Yeah, let
the
me,
proposed house site would be and how a lot would be created to accommodate that.
yeah, let me just go grab a good map. Okay. Okay, so we're over on Whalen Road, and these were the woods that he was talking about. And so this is the Lacey Living Trust parcel, the 40, and then the 20
Correct. Yep.
here. And
So
I think you're thinking about kind of in this general
No,
area?
so if you follow the lane straight up, so go up and just right there, but would be my left, your left, the other way, right in there.
Okay.
Yep, right there would be where it would be. I was up there when it was in the fall and took some pictures of the view because it's kind of a raised area, and it's like, yeah, it's a very nice view from up there. So yeah, basically right where the cursor is would be where we'd be looking to build the house.
Okay. And you're not taking any agriculture land out of use, it doesn't look like to me.
That's the whole idea.
Okay, yeah. And would the house be for you, I read?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You personally?
Yep.
Okay. Makes sense. So you're going to leave Belleville and come back to Fitchburg?
That's the idea.
Fantastic.
Well, that field road has been in there for what, 100 years?
I imagine. If not more, yeah, I'm sure it's every bit of that.
Yeah.
Are you, I think it's a good idea, and I'm familiar with that spot. One thing that you may run into, and if you maybe have investigated already, but that's a long lane.
It is a very long lane. Yep.
And the fire department is probably want a bump out on it.
Okay.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised. We've had other pieces of property like that. And that's simply a place to, if two fire trucks meet in that lane, one can get by the other.
Oh, okay, so,
I wouldn't be a bit surprised that
Widen.
they'll want to know about that. or
okay.
talk-
When you say a bump out, I mean, not the whole thing wide, but just someplace where they can pass
Yeah,
if they need to?
You have your lane, and then it expands so a truck can pull off the side, let the other one in.
Okay.
I would be, I just suggested that, or say that may happen.
Yeah, that would probably be,
Well, they did that down at Four Winds Farms, where she paved it,
Yes, yeah,
And-
yeah.
but it was just a spot for a truck to pull out of the way. And
Yeah.
I know there must be a distance that they request between,
That's right.
every so, you know,
Yeah.
if it's super long, then two, but yeah.
yeah, and I think,
That's
didn't they
definitely
do that
doable.
over on Irish Lane too for Baxter's?
Yes, there is one on that one, too, yes. The other thing is, I'm not going, and you'll have to check this out, but sometimes when you get up on a lot like that, they get up there, they need a place to turn around up there.
Yeah, that would,
So don't be surprised if something like that is requested. It's no big deal, it's just something that I would be surprised if they didn't ask you about that.
Joe, have you gone through the rural residential development criteria with staff to try to figure out how, because you need to create a lot to do this, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. is
yeah,
how-
we have discussed that the property, the two lots, is eligible for one residential lot. Currently, yes. Right?
Yeah, I think
There's a plan.
the issue is more the placement of the house and how a lot could be created that would meet the criteria
Okay.
that we've got.
From another existing
So-
house.
Deanna, was there discussion with Joe, and is there some idea as to, I'm having trouble seeing how this would be done.
Yeah, I haven't, I don't think you and I have talked about that.
There's nothing.
So the criteria is that you're supposed to be 300 feet from another residential. The lot size needs to be 1.5 acres. The tricky part that you have here is to create the lot just under our current land
Yeah.
division code, you have to have a certain width.
Right.
And flag lots are not allowed. So this one is going to be really tricky.
Well, and I think that was when I was, we were talking, when I was meeting with Zach, was it? We were talking about the lot that's up on top of the hill there, and we were looking at the old Taylor farm, just, so it'd be down in the lower right on the south side.
This,
That house, right? Yeah, it's just straight east.
oh, straight, I'm going in the wrong direction, huh? Okay. Over here?
Nope, other way.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, your other east.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, we were talking about the one right in the center on the bottom of the screen there. How the house is is way off the road. Yeah.
So in that
That was
case,
kind of a similar, when I was meeting with him that day, we were talking, that was kind of a similar situation where they had the,
That's what they did.
so there wasn't, that was for zoning, so there wasn't a lot created for that. There had previously been a house
right, yeah,
there.
there was a house
They
there.
were, they weren't putting it in the exact same spot as the previous house, but they own the entire 40 acres.
Right.
So they were able to replace the dwelling unit in
Yep.
the same location that it had historically been. But they did not create a new lot to do that, just a zoning lot. So, I mean, if that were to come in now, they wouldn't
Right,
have been
okay.
able to do that.
The 300-foot thing is going to be a big problem we're going to have to waive that somehow if this is go
Well,
through?
that is a criteria that can be waived.
Yeah,
The lot size of 1.5 acres or less can be waived.
yeah,
What cannot be waived is compatibility with adjacent farmland, outside environmentally sensitive areas. We might have to look at that in your location.
Okay,
The lot shape to the lot depth, 2 to 1. You would need to have a forest management plan and then a heritage tree protection plan. You're in the woodland, up in the woods, you are going to need a forest management.
yeah,
So,
yeah, that should not be a problem.
The one I think is a stumbling block is the depth to width ratio. There's,
yes, I don't know how you could do it.
right,
Yeah.
I don't think that there, in other words, if, if you had, to achieve a 2 to 1, if you had, say, a 2-acre lot, which would be over the 1.5, but is waivable.
Yeah,
It could be 2 to 1 if you had 2 square acres, one behind the other.
right.
And that gets to that ratio. You're not, in this case, or are you potentially going to own the entire 40?
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
That's going to be,
we
but that's going to
can't-
be down the,
Yeah, we can't take all that farmland out of AX, though. So, I mean,
But are we, if he owns the farmland
oh,
and he's putting a residence on it
no,
and it's not being separated off as a lot?
no, wouldn't then.
So then it really would boil down to the issue of satisfying the fire department with the driveway, and we still have to look at, the house location on that, but
So it looks like maybe you could do it if you own the whole property.
okay, so you're talking about the whole property?
the 40 acres,
Right,
or even
well,
potentially 20.
yeah, because it would, the property would be, the house would actually be in the 20.
Oh, it would be in that 20 back
Yeah,
there.
it would be basically right on the south line of the 20,
okay.
yeah. I mean, ideally, it'd be like straddling it, but,
Oh, right.
for-
So
as far as location, but.
wouldn't be
For
on the-
simplicity, it would be on the north side of it, in the 20.
It wouldn't be on the 40 that is adjacent to Lazy Road,
The road, no.
or Whalen Road, rather. Yeah, that would,
Would that be better if it was in the,
if you owned that 40 that's adjacent to Whalen Road, then you would have road access from your lot, which is one of the things that would be required. And if the house was tucked in that corner just south of the woods and west of the driveway, that looks like land that has not been tilled.
right, yeah, there's a little bit of grassland in the 40 down just to the west of the lane, right there, yeah.
Right.
You're going to need a CSM map to parcel off your building site regardless. So maybe you would decide to make your 40 acres now 45 to encompass the area that you really want to be. Because you have to survey the whole entire piece regardless.
Right,
Yeah, that's true. It wouldn't have to be the 40. You could
Take another chunk.
Another 5,
behind
Okay.
the 40.
and then really achieve your ideal location. But again, driveway, fire.
yeah,
The drawback to doing that is, that house then becomes the dwelling unit for that farm. That would be considered a farm. And there wouldn't be any way of separating that off as a separate lot in the future. If you wanted to do that for sale purposes or mortgage purposes or whatever it might be, it's kind of
right,
part of the farm
right,
to perpetuity. Whereas if you were to build something out on Whalen Road, you can
Right.
separate it off more easily.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, they did that, they did the lot down there where the warehouses are. I don't remember them ever not being there. I have no idea what year they would have built those, but, yes, but that was the whole idea, to not, it would be much easier to build a house along the road in that kind of a situation where we just take a chunk along the road, but,
Yeah, you could meet a lot of the requirements of the RRDC if you built,
right along, the road.
right across from
Right.
Very easily,
Tom's house.
because it'd be in
Yeah.
the 300 feet, and you would need very few waivers,
Yeah.
if any.
Yes.
But you don't
So
want
yes,
to be
so
there.
taking farmland would be easier. That's,
Right?
Right, yeah.
But we don't want to do that either.
We don't
So
wanna do- yeah.
proceed. I mean,
so, well, that's kind of why I'm here today, is just kind of figuring out the ins and outs and possibilities of all of getting this done, so. All right.
So I guess I would encourage you to, if you got some ideas as to what you think you may be able to do, talk to Deanna about it and try to work through something with staff that is.
Okay.
before
That
you
is
spend the
feasible
money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
certainly on a
that's
scale.
what this whole is about, is just, is any of this, like I say, it's much easier to just, buy a chunk along the road and separate it out into a separate lot, and that would be so easy, but, that's not what we wanted to do, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you'll probably have to take a look at the topography if you're building up on top of the hill to make sure it's conducive to building. I mean, I don't know if you've done that yet, but that's something I would definitely consider.
Yeah, well, we're pretty sure there's rock not too far down, but we're not gonna build a basement either, so.
Yeah.
Is there? Okay.
What is the slope like? Because you need to be within 12% or less slope.
Yeah, it's not a steep slope,
Okay.
it's fairly gradual right there, so.
Okay. Okay. So just kind of going through these, I mean, the things that are potentially achievable there and those that aren't. The compatibility with adjacent farm operations, that shouldn't be a conflict, I wouldn't think. Assuming that you do not have an environmentally sensitive area, I don't know why that would be. There's certainly no water there.
No.
The lot shape, the depth and width, that's the big one, but it's kind of a matter of, are you going to own the 40 that's adjacent to Whalen Road and perhaps some additional chunk of it going north?
Yeah.
Then that could be, well, that really would be a non-issue then, because now you're just building on a farm. You'd leave it zoned AX and put a house on it, which you can do.
Right, okay.
And there are how many splits available to the overall?
There's one.
Just the
There's
one.
one available, okay. The forestry plan, if there's an impact, heritage tree protection. I don't know what you have up there for trees.
Little bit of everything, but, and some of the undergrowth has been being cleared out, leaving, the standing trees, kind of, but that's not my doings yet, but,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's just a nice woods right now.
Yeah, I would say it's a nice woods. You got it looking pretty good. You've worked on that for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clean. I don't know if you ever had a forester walk through there, but,
I don't think they have.
yeah.
I'd have to ask Tom.
Yeah, I wish we could get ours to that point. It's nice. It is nice. Yeah. Located on lands without a history of tillage, it appears at least from that photo that has not been tilled. Within 300 feet from another residence, okay, that one you're not going to be able to meet, but it's waivable. The lot size of 1.5 acres or more, again, I think that's probably inapplicable because you'd be building on a farm. It would be a farm. And then the slopes. So, I mean, it looks like it may be doable, I think, if you are going to own all that property.
Okay.
But I don't think it would be possible to create a lot just up there.
Okay.
With, like with an easement to the road, that's probably not going to work.
Okay.
So he doesn't need to rezone any portion of that rural residential to put that, okay, as long as he has the 40 or 35 or more, right?
Yeah, if he's got
Okay.
35 or more.
35 or more.
And you got it right, and
Well, we're
they're
just
using the
40.
split to put up a house, which you can do.
And we're just saying 40 because, for simple purposes, because it's 40 right now.
Yeah,
But you could make it
the lower
45.
portion is 40.
Okay. Yeah.
So one thing that I'm unclear on is, because I don't know that we've had this situation come up in quite some time, I don't know whether the RRDC is actually even applicable if he's building a home, which is allowed, as long as you've got the split in AX zoning.
I don't know. Honestly, I'll have to dig a little
Yeah,
bit
because
more.
then when you do start to have some of these conversations and questions as to, whether criteria need to be waived, I don't even know whether they're applicable in that situation. I mean, you do need the building permit, and I would assume the fire department would need to weigh in on that, but this may not be an RRDC issue.
And there's never any farmstead on this land, is that correct? Or-
Not that land, no.
Not that part of it. I mean, there's the overall farm, yes, across the road, but you're essentially creating a new farm.
It's a very good point.
Joe don't.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll do a confirmation.
Any other thoughts? Or any questions, Joe?
No, I think that's answered most of what I needed to know today. I say it's kind of a long-term thing. We'll see what we can get done, I guess.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Sounds good. Thanks for bringing it in. Nice
you.
to see you again. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
All right. So we're on to 5E, which is discussion of committee membership requirements. And I had asked this to be placed, and Roger and I had talked about it. And I think one of the things that it's becoming difficult to find a sufficient number of farmers, active farmers, in the city to always keep our positions filled. And so the idea was to talk about what exactly the makeup is of this committee and whether we as a committee wanted to recommend any changes to that makeup. So, Dan, you want to kind of go through the existing makeup of the committee? Trying to find that page. Uh, 52?
So currently, the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee has 7 members, one of which is an alderperson from District 4, or whichever district contains the most rural residents, 1 Plan Commission member from District 4, or the district that contains the most rural residents, 2 city farmers, 1 resident who resides outside of the urban service area, and 2 residents at large. So that is, and I can bring that up too for you all. That's just right from the code.
So I think at present, we don't meet, the makeup of this body does not meet I think we're fine, except that we do not have 2 active farmers. Mark is an active farmer.
We are too, so you're all right. Arrow J Ranch LLC. Crop farmers.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
You're crop farming? Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know
I
that.
created the LLC a couple years ago.
Okay. I mean, having horses is not agriculture.
no.
Breeding horses
We're
is.
farming, like hay, we're making hay and selling it.
Oh, you are?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, okay. I didn't
yeah.
know that.
Horses are not cheap, Ed. You gotta,
You gotta pay for them
You
somehow.
gotta-
Not just feed them, but
you
feed
gotta
somebody
pivot
else.
a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Me too.
Scott?
Oh, Scott.
Is that Scott? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's me. I think I would qualify as a active farmer, aren't I?
Tell us
Okay.
what you're doing.
What are you doing?
We got corn and we just had 46 acres of corn taken off, and what else have we had? Soybeans.
Yeah, we own farmland too, Ed. I mean,
Okay,
All right then.
okay,
yeah, we own 130 acres where we are, so
yep,
we're all right.
okay.
Well, yeah, and I'm a member of an LLC where we lease some ag land, take care of 20-acre woodland,
Yeah,
and that's all farm use.
okay.
Look
I
at
think
the
we've
things
got,
we find
we've
out.
got 3 people that are definitely actively farming. So,
We've got it then. We're okay.
yeah, then we're okay.
So
All
you
right.
do need me.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Of course,
Well, no, we've got Scott, so no.
Oh, shoot. Scott, take
You're
that comment
now
back.
expendable.
Just like that.
No, we're in good shape. There's no restriction against having more than 2 farmers.
I think that's good.
That's,
The
yeah,
more the merrier.
yeah, no, that's great. And we have in the past had a lot more farmers on the
Is
committee.
Scott
It's just-
farming in Fitchburg?
Well, it doesn't even actually, I don't know if it matters whether the land he's farming is in Fitchburg or in Oregon.
Okay.
He lives in Fitchburg if he's farming.
I was trying to make him more expendable than me.
Oh, I see.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Scott, you're not here to defend yourself.
That's okay.
So what we would do for 2 farmers right now, of course, Mark has been identified as a farm.
Yeah.
Then we use either George,
Well,
Scott, or Amy as.
probably Scott
as
or
the
Amy,
farmer.
because they're definitely actively
Scott,
farming. Scott
Okay.
or Amy, doesn't matter.
okay. So Mark and Scott would be the farm. Leave Amy as city at large? Yeah. Okay, either one of them needs to go on. We're covered right now. The point is, we did not have when we were talking, we didn't have the identification of what we've learned right now, which is great. But
Okay.
down the road, this could be something, not a big issue and not anything hard to solve, but the definition of resident outside of urban service area will probably have to be increased if you can't get another farmer. You know, if you can't fill the farmer one, then you'd probably use that category to fill the description for the committee.
You could, you could designate an active or retired farmer, which would be another possible solution, but I guess, I don't know that we need a
We
solution.
could always tap into my husband.
Well, you're talking like the farmer that has farm income, that
Yeah.
Yes,
classification.
that's right.
Right.
And no, not horses, Ed, don't worry. We know those aren't making any money.
No, but if you breed them every now and then and sell them, that's agriculture.
Salt in the
You
wound.
could turn yourself into a farmer there too.
So are we back unqualified now?
What's that?
No, we're,
So are we back unqualified now?
no, George, we're farming some hay. We're making a little money over there.
But, in that same sense, someone that has an agricultural background with research and education,
Yeah.
I would think would be another
some
category
passion.
that if they're living, even if they're living urban, I guess, but
But they grew up on a,
if they're living in the city, you'd think they could meet that qualification too.
The qualification of city at large would cover something like what you're saying and everything. The whole bottom line, I think, of this committee is to have a cross-section, maybe a little bit leaning towards agricultural business, but still have representation that's outside of District 4. And because our mission is to have knowledge about what's going on in the ag area. And that entails the type of people we have on this, but we cannot be blind to the urban area being involved.
Well, there is no requirement in there that there be anyone outside of District 4 on this committee. And in fact, there isn't anyone right now on the committee outside of District 4. There's no one from Districts 1, 2, or 3.
Not now.
No, nor do we have to have one. There could be.
Well,
Those are the two city residents at large
yes,
could be inside the urban service area, but they don't have to be, and they're
That's
currently,
correct.
and they're currently not.
yeah, that's
Yep.
correct.
What I like about having the two city farmers in here is it requires of any future mayor that they make every effort to fill those spots, and that we do have representation on this committee by actual farmers.
It's very important.
Yep.
So we still have farmland in Fitchburg.
And if we're, Raj and I were concerned that we currently didn't meet the requirements. Clearly, we do. We've got 3 active farmers.
Oh, right now.
So maybe there's nothing we need to do here other than, kind of, continue to be aware that, we do have requirements that we got to meet for this committee, and looks like we're good. So,
Yep.
Okay.
okay, all right. Anything else on that topic? All right, let's move on to item 5F, which is indoor storage and agricultural zoning districts. This also is just purely a discussion item. We had gone through our ordinance and looked at conditional uses for AX, AS, and I think AT zoning, and added a number of things. And I think we're aware that there are former farm buildings that are being used throughout the city for storage purposes. For profit. Their space is rented out. That is not allowed under ag zoning. And I think the question that I'd like to discuss here is, should that be? I mean, I think we don't want a situation where people are putting up buildings for this purpose. But if you're going to take an existing ag building that was built for that purpose, it's been there for a long time, it doesn't make sense maybe to replace the roof on it unless you're getting some use out of it.
Absolutely.
And someone wants to store, boats or campers or cars or whatever it is seasonally in there. Is that a problem? Should that be a problem?
No, absolutely not. People have had to pivot from farming, right? Because you can't make any money milking cows. So people sold their cows, and now we want them to stay on their farm and keep their farmland. So you have to pivot. So by all means, do I want to see storage buildings go up in Fitchburg on farmland? Absolutely not. But converting an existing barn or piece dwelling into storage, as long as it's structurally sound, right? Absolutely, I would support that 100%. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's always been that, a personal choice to the farmer, whether or not he wants to have a boat stored or a camper.
Keep a
in his
cow or a
barn.
boat. You're the
I don't think
you're the
it's
boss.
anything that we should put a rule on.
It's illegal right now.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Oh, we need to do something, Ed.
That is not something that is allowed under AX zoning.
Okay.
That doesn't mean people aren't doing it.
What action can we take, Ed?
And this actually came up with, a property where someone said, hey, I think that they've got storage going on there. That was reported to the city. The city had to take action, say, no, you can't do that. And it really is kind of complaint driven. But nonetheless, what do we want to do? Do you want to?
Well,
you want to look the other way, or just say no? Let's make this legal
Yeah,
and set the parameters under which it's legal.
Yeah, I don't know where you draw the line, because I don't think it's ever been a problem.
I got the impression that there was some above city ordinance, state statutes that had some say in this. Deanna, can you speak to that at all?
Well, actually, Brad's been working on this a little bit, so I'll defer.
Okay.
Yeah, so the AX zone in particular, it has to meet, in order to be eligible for farmland preservation tax credits and everything, the AX zone has to meet the farmland preservation criteria that are put out in state statutes. And, you know, the closest, so that's in Chapter 91 of the Wisconsin State Statute. So the closest that, you know, that a storage could get, as far as, you know, what I've looked at so far, is as an accessory use. So that would mean that there still has to be, like, it's a use that's, you know, part of a farm. It's a small portion of it, but you wouldn't be able to have something that is just storage. So, and, you know, if you go into the definitions in Chapter 91, that's the farmland preservation statute. That's kind of where you'd see that. And this definition here is a business activity or enterprise. This is an accessory use. Whether or not associated with an agricultural use that's conducted by the owner or operator of a farm that requires no buildings, structures, or improvements other than those, you know, described in paragraph A or paragraph C, which includes, those are building structure improvement that's integral, part of, or incidental to an agricultural use or a farm residence. Those are the buildings that are encompassed in those paragraphs.
Where is this in the, we've got
It's at the very beginning.
91 point,
So page 211 of the packet, 2 of 11 of the packet for this item.
page 2, okay, so 9101,
Yeah, the definition's there.
sub what?
Sub D is kind
D-
of where that might fall under, yeah.
D of what, 16, 15, 16, 17?
Oh, 9101, sub 1D.
I think you got to go up.
Oh, it's up here.
It's up at the beginning of the code, right there, under
Oh,
definitions.
D, okay.
Yeah.
Does everyone see where that is? It's right at the top of subchapter 1. Item D.
So anything we were to do with our ordinance would have to be consistent with this part of Wisconsin state statutes in order to remain a farmland preservation zoning district.
Yes.
Okay, so if we wanted to do this, Brad, then how would we do this, or what could be considered?
That's a good question. I think it would require more kind of consideration and discussion on what exactly could be allowed. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that it would have to be an accessory use to an agricultural operation. Like, somebody couldn't go in there, and however it's worded to ensure this is you know, followed that way, or that it's clear, you couldn't open a storage business there in the AX zone. It would have to be an accessory to an agricultural
An
use.
active, yes,
Yeah.
active agricultural
Right.
use. So I think at least I'll give you my take on this. The storage, any use other than true agricultural use in the AX district, so we're just going to talk about exclusive ag, that's going to be an accessory use. So that means it's just a limited part of the overall activity on the farm. And so that's what this particular section is pointing to. It means land uses on the farm that I'll just point this out, incidental to an agricultural use. So does that kind of help?
Incidental, no, I don't know what that means.
Well, I would say it wouldn't work if you wanted to open up Bob's boat storage.
Okay.
If you wanted to store a couple boats for your buddies and your buddies and your buddies, you know, that's a little bit different.
How do you draw the line?
That's,
I've got 300 buddies, you know?
Yeah, right,
Well,
exactly.
I
Or are you
and-
charging for it or doing it free? You know, is
Well,
that
I
the issue? I don't know.
think that's kind of where this section of the code comes in. It's a business activity or enterprise that requires no buildings or structures other than those described in A or C, and that employs no more than four full-time employees annually, and that does not impair, limit the current or future agricultural use of the farm or other protected farmland. That's a pretty big chunk
So,
there.
so what the state statute is saying is that would leave that landowner or farmer ineligible for tax credits as far as farmland preservation goes?
Well, this
Well-
is, so, well, there's kind of two different pieces. If the farm, yes, if they wanted to zone out of AX, yeah, then they would lose their eligibility.
And what this means is that we can't change our AX zoning district to allow something other than this. Otherwise, the entire AX zoning district would
Because,
not be.
I look at it other than boats, like if you had a construction contractor that wanted to store equipment to work on several farms in Fitchburg, it wouldn't be lawful, huh? Or it wouldn't be permitted?
I think this is where that gray area goes, right? Because it has to be a minor part of the activities that are happening on the farm. The main use on the farm is still agriculture.
Yeah.
And so, and that whatever that activity is, it can't impair, limit the current or future agricultural uses on the site.
Hypothetical situation in my head, and then maybe we can all just understand.
Okay, sure.
So we have let's say 130 acre farm, but we have a big old barn on it because when Grandma and Grandpa were alive, we milked a bunch of cows. Well, Grandma and Grandpa passed away and the price of milk tanked, and we didn't want to milk cows, so we sold the cows and now we have this barn here. Could we apply for a conditional use permit to change our barn into storage, but we're still farming these 130 acres with crops? Like, we didn't change anything except for there's not cows in our barn anymore. There might be campers and boats in it.
Yeah, I guess that was
Yeah,
what I was thinking, that conditional use for a storage for equipment to fix the farm.
Because we want to live on the farm still. Like, we still want to be there and we still want to farm.
You're not going to build a new.
I'm not going to build a new building. We got this
Campers and
barn
boats.
here.
I think that's.
You're going to,
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that is under state law, that's okay. Under our current zoning ordinances,
So
it's not.
we need to do what we need to do to make that okay in Fitchburg then, my opinion. I mean.
And to answer your like kind of hypothetical question, I actually think, based on just my initial reading of this, that a contractor that is storing equipment to work on agricultural equipment, I think that might actually fall under 3 on that same page, agriculture-related use, whereas it's any of the following: agricultural equipment dealerships, facility providing agricultural supplies, facility for storing or processing agricultural products. So those are also something
Right.
that is.
I was more or less thinking more on the building end of it.
Yeah.
Or construction end of it, like with fixing roofs and.
yeah, well, what if
Sure.
if it's a plumbing contractor and their work is not primarily
Yeah.
ag related? I mean, those are the things that we need to make sure that we're clear about. Is
Right.
that something that can be allowed under state statute or not?
And will we need a conditional use permit?
Yeah.
Or could we just do it?
We better look into it.
Okay, on the contractor thing, my thinking is yes, as long as it remains an accessory use to the overall farm activity. If that's the primary use that's happening there, then I do not think that would be in conformance with.
I would agree with that completely, too. Makes sense.
We don't really have anything in code that would allow that right now. I think we'd have to create a conditional use in there to make that actual legal.
Yeah, so we certainly don't want to block this. I mean, that allows families to stay on farms and keep farms if they can pivot away from, whatever came their way.
It also may encourage people to maintain buildings that they would otherwise not maintain.
Well, I also see where, they got 4 full-time employees annually. We'll say it becomes quite a business. and there's more than 4 full-time employees.
Well, I see,
And
you're getting
you know,
into
you're-
things that I think
Yeah.
that we don't want in the agricultural area. We don't want businesses locating to the agricultural area.
Yeah, because then it's gonna require more like infrastructure.
Oh, yeah.
shall we say?
Yeah, exactly, and that should be in the urban service area. So I think we want to be careful about this. So we're talking about boat and camper storage for seasonal purposes, that's fine, but you get down a slippery slope too, when you get into contractors.
Yeah.
And the other question that we would need to address if we think we wanted to do something here is how we would want to treat outdoor storage.
That's a good point. I mean, once you start getting to outdoor storage, I mean, I don't see it in Fitchburg, but I drive to Janesville often and down 14, and I think it can be quite an eyesore to see some of that stuff that's piled up outside of, 100-year-old barns. And
So if we're talking about indoor storage in a former agricultural building, we're not talking about new construction, I guess
Right.
we're talking about a building that say was built for agricultural purposes and has been there for 20 years. I mean, otherwise, someone's going to build one, and then
Right.
5 years later, they're going to come in and say, first of all, they're going to illegally rent space out. Then they'll come back in 5 years later and say, no, it's an existing building. Now I want to do it legally. I mean, right,
Yeah.
so you got to prevent that.
Yeah,
I'm in agreement, too. I wouldn't want outdoor storage. I'd want to be clear, what's allowed and that it be.
I think it needs to be defined, yeah.
So, I guess, do we think in general that this is something that we would want to pursue as, an additional conditional use in ag zoning?
Yeah, I think we ought to work on this and some way or other work with Deanna and start to move on this. Just let's clean this up.
Yeah.
And I think it can be cleaned up, if we keep in mind the whole description of what Amy said here, and that is the true situation that's going on out here right now. I really like the idea of maintaining these buildings. Like you said, Ed, we've got a few buildings that are falling down right now that could have maybe been used. And the supplemental income after farming is important. I believe we can put it together and make it right for everybody. We certainly don't want to put a whole bunch of huge amount of restrictions on it, but I think we can work on it.
And if we were going to look at this too, we need to determine, whether there are fire code issues.
Yeah.
Or, I think when we were talking about, the O'Brien item earlier, that there was discussion of some certification that was achieved by them for use of the space that the state may require.
They got a permit, I think.
Yeah, there's some sort of a permit, and I don't know whether the state then requires that people have that, but basically, they are kind of, it sounds like they are governing whether or not you can operate this as a business and make sure that your building is, because you're taking control of someone else's property and storing it on your own property, and so. What has to be met there? Are there state requirements that need to be met if someone's doing this? Which is why I think, if we're going to look at doing this, I don't see doing it as an allowed use. I would see doing it as a conditional use so that we can make certain that if there are any state requirements or any requirements of our fire department, whoever it may be, that those things are addressed when someone wants to do this.
Would be
Absolutely. It's
it
flexible.
would be protection for the O'Brien family too, as far as any liability issues that could.
Well, most of the people that are doing this, I don't know of any. They have agreements or contracts with this person that's storing.
I would think so.
And as far as like you're mentioning the liability, they sign a waiver of liability. So if something happens to that property that they have storage, and they're paying rent on it, the landowner or the building owner waives his rights of having liability. You sign that away. And that's what's going on right now. Now, of course, that has to be looked in maybe a little bit further, but all liability is not on the landowner.
So just so that I understand what you're saying, there's a fire, the shed burns down, and everything, all the boats inside are destroyed. Whose insurance is that on?
The boat owner.
The boat owner. Okay.
As long as the landowner sets it up that way.
Well, yes, when they have contracts, they have contracts in which the rates are listed.
Well, I understand, but I mean, who's requiring that contract? Are you saying that the state statute mandates that?
No,
Or just, if they want to be a good, responsible landowner, and they're going to lease out a space in their barn, the landowner will take it upon themselves, is what you're saying. But I'm just saying, if we're going to look into this and go take it steps further, are you suggesting then that we make a requirement? Or are you just presenting this as conversation?
I hear what you're saying, Randy. I don't know if we need to get into that.
No, I don't. I mean, we're discussing it, so I'm just asking, exploring all possibilities here.
It's an individual deal.
Sure.
By having these contracts it saves both sides. A person can put a boat in there and it burned down. Well, he better have insurance on it even if he had it at his house.
Yeah. No, I
It's the
agree.
same thing.
Agreed. But what about with the next landowner, next farm, who doesn't? Say, all right, you can have this space for $50 a month, and you pull your trailer in, but no contract is signed,
And somebody takes your trailer.
Well, there's 10 vehicles in there, and the place burns down, and there's no agreement other than verbal.
Yeah.
Then
That's not a
too
city
bad.
problem.
Yeah, I guess.
That's not a city problem.
No, it is not. No, neither is the contract that
Right.
you're discussing. It's not a
Right.
city
But,
problem
but
either.
the state codes have to be met.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
You may also have someone that says, all right, I got a machine shed. I want to be able to tell people, this building is insured, and if I've got your stuff in here, it is insured.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it. But if I'm going to go to my insurance agent and say, all right, I need this policy to cover the stuff I'm storing here, the insurance agent is probably going to say, oh, do you have the zoning for that? Is that
Right.
legal? Okay.
Right.
If you do,
I
yeah,
guess
we
that's
have a
the point where I'm
conditional use.
going with it.
We have a
yeah.
conditional use permit from the city of Fitchburg, and the agent says, okay, then yes, you can pay to insure that, including all the contents. Let us know what they are.
Agreed.
Whereas right now, you probably don't have that option, because you go to your insurance agent, and he's going to say,
We sold
you don't have zoning to do that there. We're not going to insure that.
And I don't know
First
if
thing we
it's the,
discussed with them was.
I think it would,
liability.
the insurance, I think the property owner would be responsible for the structure insurance.
It could-
I think the owner.
I'm saying it could go
would be-
either way.
Because I'm just going to tell you where I'm thinking about this, Ed. So every year my insurance agent is like, so is your horse trailer in storage or are you on the road? Because from December until February, my horse trailer is in storage. I'm not driving down the road.
Yeah, and you've got comprehensive that covers that.
Saves me a little bit of money.
Yep.
I don't really,
Yep.
I'm not good about it. I should be better. But it's been offered, is it in storage or is it on the road? So as an owner of a piece of property, I have to have insurance, on my horse trailer, regardless.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking the insurance piece would be on, if I was renting storage, I would be responsible for the barn, the structure, and the individual owner would be responsible for the contents. That's my thoughts, because otherwise you'd be double insuring. Great for the insurance company.
But I'm just saying, these are the things that we need to explore, because we do know that there is a state statute that does address this, and whatever we're doing needs to be within, that
Yeah.
statute too. So maybe the thing to do would be to just, and this is, there's no imminent request here, so I don't know that there's a timeline under which this would need to be done.
Right. I didn't
But
even know
if this is
was
something that staff could look into and say, okay,
I had no idea.
we understand what you want to do, here's what you could do if you want to do it, here's how you'd want to do it. And then it would be something,
Sticking out.
Randy, that would take to
Oh, yeah.
you know, to council for,
Exactly, yeah.
for a zoning change at some point, whenever that point is appropriate, again, knowing that there's nothing imminent here, but
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I will jump in here, and I think that staff can look a little bit further into whatever the state requirements are. And I think it would be good if Brad and I just took a look and see if other communities have a similar kind of, we've already addressed this.
Yeah,
Oh, excellent.
yeah.
We'll put that on our to-do
Like
list.
other rural communities, because I think this is like more of a rural thing,
Yep.
you know?
Sure.
So like maybe Belleville, or I don't know, I'm thinking Belleville because the gentleman put that in my head. But I don't know, Paoli.
Scott, any thoughts from you on this?
I mean, but it boils down to it, if there's an incident, it's a civil matter between the two people anyway, so I don't know how much we can really, when it comes to the courts and the insurance companies, so, but, you know, I think it's something to look into, so we got a better gauge as to what people are doing.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Unless there's further discussion on that, I'll move on to item 5G. This is a conditional use requirements for rural event venues. Let's find that in the packet.
It's 64.
Page 64, okay. Yeah.
You are correct.
65, 6, 7.
So I'd ask that this be put on the agenda. And, you know, one of the things that was certainly not clear to me when we launched into putting together this list of conditional uses for the ag area, ag-related uses. One of the things that was not clear to me was that in the past, municipality really could do largely what it wanted to do with a conditional use request. You could say no, you could say yes. That really was, you know, within the authority of the community, and there are things under state law that have changed now. And it really limits municipalities' ability to say no to a conditional use request. And so, given that, this is kind of one of those areas where, you know, we could have requests for venues like this in areas that really don't make sense. And in fact, we had that come up. And we said no to it. But we really don't know what would happen if that decision were challenged. And so my thinking is that we should consider amending this particular conditional use to make it clear as to what locations may be acceptable and what locations may not be. In other words, we may think that it's fine to put something like this on a county highway, but we don't want it on a small rural road.
That's exactly it.
And what we've got in here right now is a little vague with regard to that. I think there is, looking for where is the clause in here that has to do with traffic and the impact on neighbors?
F, I think, F.
F, yeah, F, the increase in traffic generated by the venue shall not create a nuisance to nearby residents by way of traffic, noise, or significant increases in parking on public ways. And that's really what we relied on when we were looking at a recent request. But perhaps we need to beef that up a little bit and just make it clear that there are some areas of the city where we're just not going to look at.
Like main
Consider an event like this.
highways, main roadways, not on like rural country road. I don't,
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, if there is general agreement that that's how we want this to read, then, you know, we could maybe have staff take a look at it. But I don't know whether there's general agreement on that. That's what I'm proposing, that.
I would agree, Ed. I mean, I don't know, George,
Give me,
what do you,
give me an example of what you might be talking about.
okay.
We said no to one, and I would say no to it again.
I would
So
too.
like, let's say Four Winds Farm location?
We said yes to Four Winds Farm.
That
It's
location?
on Highway D.
Or
county
putting
highway.
one at my house where I live on Little Cane Road with curves and
Right.
all of that. So we don't want one at my house, but we like one there type.
So you're going to identify, you're thinking like, in this particular case, identifying county roads exclusively or city roads?
Yeah, I mean, that could be one way, well, they're all city streets.
Yeah,
So one way of doing it would be on a county highway, I suppose, or on a main road, but then you have to identify, okay, what's a main road
Yeah.
and what isn't? I mean, maybe you say Lacey Road's a main road, but it's not a county highway. So that might be okay.
Well, I can tell you that we don't have the law enforcement staff in the city adequate to patrol or enforce anything in the rural Fitchburg. I mean, I think we've all said time and time again, we don't even know the last time we've seen a police officer out where we live. So that's one example of us just being lacking preparation to host something. I mean, people are increased traffic, people are going to crash, like we need resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Four Winds Farm was the perfect.
It's the
setup
perfect.
because they come off of,
Okay.
not the county road, but they come off of Adams.
It's easy to point at
Yeah,
the perfect one.
Yeah.
And it's easy to point at the one that we obviously don't want.
yeah, but what would, in between,
Yeah, what else might be coming forward?
Apple Garden.
yeah.
well, there again, yeah, that's been,
Between one?
that's been used for large venues quite a few years now.
Yeah.
And they've got parking right off the road. Of course, it's not like everybody goes home at the same time too, or everybody goes out there at the same time.
To me, it's clearly agriculture
Yeah.
related. It is agriculture.
Yeah, and there's
A
good
wedding barn is
visibility right
not
there and
agriculture.
everything.
Right. And I think clearly right now what they're doing is completely within the current zoning. But I guess my question was, what if they sought a rural event venue?
And they could too, very easily. They're set up for it.
Let's consider this. I just happened to think up there it says, or significant increases in parking on public ways
Yeah.
as some way or other deemed
Approved.
deemed safely accessible by the police department.
Oh.
Or by the traffic. In other words, we may find some place that's like on Fitchverona, right, or on Fitchburg Road with Apple Garden. I mean, how do you identify that from Fish Hatchery or MM or M? But if in our last case that we turned down, the actual roadway was a big part of the safety and us approving
Oh,
that.
yeah. It's not-
Okay,
And there's
but-
railroad tracks.
And the
why don't we have a,
impact on neighboring
Yeah.
residences too?
yeah, but why don't we have, I don't know whether we can have our traffic or police department say, hey, wait a minute, we don't need this safe, we don't need this.
We don't have the
We don't think this is a safe spot. That alone would maybe cause us to think, oh, hey, this is not a good deal. By putting that in there, that does not identify any specific roadway. They're making the decision that it's right. That then puts Apple Gardens roadway the same as Fish Hatchery or M or any of these.
Well, they're
But
very
if we say county road, we're going to, or city road, how do you identify what's safe on each one of those?
I think you bring up a really good point. I think one of the things that was difficulty with that last one that was denied, the traffic or the police need to provide data to show that it's a problem, right? It's not sufficient.
Well, it might not be a problem yet, but
Right.
it's surely going to be a problem pretty soon.
Yeah. So I think that's where the tricky part is. So the traffic engineers can go and say, we look at all of our models, we look at the roadway, we look at the roadway layout, and this road can handle, say, 50 cars a day additional without causing additional traffic problems. The traffic engineer is going to have to go back to that data, standard, normal kind of data that is used and equally understood by all engineers to say whether or not it's a problem. And my understanding, I came kind of at the end of this, was that the traffic engineers didn't have a whole lot of problem with this particular site.
They don't live there.
Well, I guess I understand what you're saying, Amy, but this is where state law has changed.
Yeah, I
That
see what you're saying.
Ed was referring to.
Yeah.
We need to have some hard data to deny something if it's meeting the requirements
I
that
see.
are in our.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's where you're going.
It becomes incumbent upon us to prove
Well,
that we should not allow you to do this.
That's right.
It's
And we need,
hard.
we need data for that.
Yeah, we need.
We need data.
Yeah, I like that, yeah.
Yeah. So,
well,
I mean, I certainly, we can look within the city's transportation plans. There's more than just county roads. There's other classifications that the city engineers use. I can't get them off the top of my head, but we can explore that a little bit more.
And this is maybe a question also for the city attorney, is what could, and maybe just ask her, what could we do to beef up this section to protect us better in the event that there is a request for one of these venues that we think is problematic?
yeah. And I'm speaking for myself here, but I don't want to see 50 of these things go up.
Well, I don't either.
So I'm speaking for Ed and I.
Yeah, if it were me, I would say, well, we've
We
got
have
one,
enough.
it's at a great location, it's really
Same.
well done. Let's just
Use it.
eliminate this entirely.
Amen.
Grandfather that one in and
Exactly.
go ahead.
And grandfather Apple Garden in. I mean, they've been doing a great business for however long they've been doing it, which I think we already did grandfather.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, if there was ever an issue, they could now come in and apply for a condition. They're grandfathered, I guess. But, they could actually get a conditional use under what we put together to allow them to continue to do what they're doing.
Is it possible for the city of Fitchburg to say, like, we have a wonderful rural event venue located on Fish Hatchery Road and Highway M?
You don't want to have protectionism, but on,
Or, I mean, is that acceptable to say we have one, like, and it's in the perfect location?
Well, we used to have,
I don't think that'll legally hold.
we used to have the Fitchburg Fall Farm Festival out at Apple Garden.
Yep, I
When Vern
remember
was
you
there.
talking about that.
which was definitely a rural event.
I think I roasted 4 pigs for that. Two
For one event, 4 pigs?
two for one year and 2 another year.
Wow.
So maybe we can
But
just,
that was a big deal. That was a big crowd.
I don't like
maybe we can just have the city attorney take a look at this and say,
opportunity comes up.
what can she recommend that would
Where at, where, we
put
have
us
to
in
go
a
around
better
here.
position
Where?
when we review one of these? Because, the next one that comes in may be a location that makes complete sense to us, and it's just someone wants to do something on somewhere on MM or whatever it might be, and it might be fine.
I agree.
But
Exactly, at Highway MM.
Okay. And do you think
I know.
we should focus on the traffic generation and the traffic impacts? Or do you think we should ask the city attorney to look beyond that particular clause here?
maybe look beyond that too,
Okay.
to anything that might be a problem, the reasons why we might say no to something like this. the impact on the neighbors. I think it's a big one. I mean, that particular one had a bunch of neighbors.
Yeah, that were not pleased.
There was more to
Yeah,
that than
Fish
just the
Hatchery,
traffic. The
there are
traffic
no
wasn't the
neighbors
main
anymore
thing
there.
at all. I mean,
Yeah.
it was only part of it.
Apple Garden,
Yeah.
there's no neighbors there.
And it was a new construction of a new structure, you know,
Yeah, well,
For Winds
I
Farm,
didn't like
rehab-
that, but we put that in here.
yeah. And
We said that's okay.
We wrote that in.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, you guys.
No, well, we got,
Well,
I know I was here for it. I'm just as guilty.
no, I agree. I wouldn't mind stripping that out.
I know Roger. He doesn't want to cut
No,
down
Roger
any-
loves these.
I
Roger
know.
loves these things, and he
No.
wants 14
He wants
of
to
them.
get a job out
no.
there.
Yeah.
His retirement.
The bottom, the way thing I think we need to make sure is,
The barn down on,
we don't know what's coming down the road.
Right.
right next to,
We don't know.
that was moved.
We don't.
And the way we have this set up here right now is if somebody comes in with an idea that is, I mean, Light's great idea, we're ready to do it. We don't know.
Preserve agriculture.
To block it out, other than the way it stands right now, I think we'd be making a mistake. Even the old buildings versus the new buildings. I think we cannot be so narrow-sighted that we don't think down the road that here is a good economic benefit to the city, but we can't do it because we say, hey, you can't put up new buildings, or we can't do part of this. I mean, new buildings is part of it. I think we need to keep it in here, clean it up the best we can. I think the traffic issue is something that's most important. But we can't be narrow-sighted on what we think today. Let's have it on the books. We're proactive to somebody coming in with a good economic plan for Fitchburg
In a good location.
and a good location. We don't know where that is.
Yeah. But not every plan that comes in is going to be good.
Exactly.
That's correct.
And we got to be able to say no when it's not good, Raj.
Exactly.
And that's what you got to
And we do have that right.
Well,
Not really.
Not with this new.
I mean, we do and we don't, right? We don't know. We really don't know. With the change to state law, we
Yeah.
don't know to what extent we can say no to
So
conditional
Deanna, I
use
think that's a
requests. In the
great
past,
question
it
for
was
the
carte
city
blanche.
attorney.
In the past, if the city didn't want something, you just say no.
Yeah. So like,
And
yeah.
State laws changed.
Let's have the city attorney look at the state statute and then see, I mean, Deanna, I think you know where most of us are kind of going with our thoughts. So like if you could ask her to look at the state statute and then look and see how the city of Fitchburg may be able to respond or react in the event that we have a proposal in a what we think might be a bad location or.
Well, you know, there's a organization in Fitchburg that handles large events, that race day event. That organization over by, right next to, was it Supreme Structures?
Next to Hop House.
Hop House. And I mean, they're used to big marathons, I'm sure. They probably worked on the Burby Derby, I imagine. But they bring, you know, I would think they know some of the ins and outs on large events. Somebody in there must have some connection on how to, you know, handle large crowds at certain times and certain roads. You know, they probably were working with the Ironman.
Oh, how'd
when
that
it
go,
came
Ed?
through.
Iron Man comes by our house it's fine, but what we weren't expecting was the mini Iron Man that happened the day before that nobody told us that was going to be happening.
Yeah, that's short notice.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a surprise.
Yeah, that was a surprise. They didn't come by your place, though, did they?
No, but I was trying to go down your road.
Oh, well,
It's connected to where I live.
find some other road.
I did. I had to turn around.
You didn't want
Well,
And if you're going to come down my road, at least stop by and say hi now and then.
All right.
Yeah.
I was in a hurry.
Okay.
my sister couldn't get out of her driveway out there between Mount Horeb and Black Earth,
Yeah.
78.
Well, so let's take a look at this and see what
I think we should.
what she would suggest that we might do to
Yeah.
tweak this.
Like we need some advice.
That's good.
Thank you. Thank you, Deanna.
We shall do so.
Okay, that's all we had for the agenda tonight. Is there a staff report, or are there any announcements that anyone has?
Brad, you might want to just let them know about Farmland Says.
Yeah, there are a couple updates. Dane County adopted the farmland preservation plan. There were a couple minor text changes that don't really apply to Fitchburg in there, but that was adopted basically as was shown I think it was the last meeting. So that's done. And I also had something just as a kind of a for your information for the committee. It's a state program that wanted to make everyone aware of in case you aren't. There is a program run by the Wisconsin DNR, the Managed Forest Law Program, which gives, I guess, real quick summary of it is people can enroll forest land into this program, and it gets tax. You pay a fee in lieu of taxes then, and it basically it's a kind of a tax benefit. It drops the tax liability of that land by quite a bit, and in exchange, it has to be managed for timber production, and the landowners can either enroll it as open to the public for recreation or closed. There's a limit to the amount of closed land in each municipality, but just wanted to make everyone aware of it as something that is, I guess, a tool out there for forest conservation and management in the rural area.
So that was kind of a big issue when we were talking about assessments over the past few years, increases in assessments and people who've had property that they viewed as agricultural, and someone else is telling them, no, it's recreational. So, what can we do to kind of get that information out there to people who may be interested in looking into this?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have good ideas for getting the word out about it, but it's, I don't know, maybe it's something that we could post a link to on our website or something.
We could. And I guess in all tax issues, everything lands at the assessor's desk, and we could certainly make the new assessor aware.
Do we have a new assessor?
Not yet.
Okay.
But one has been hired.
Okay.
And so that's something I'm just throwing out. We
Yeah.
can make that information available through the assessor's office. It just seems like kind of a good program to work with the DNR on the management of the land. You do make a commitment.
Yeah.
I think it's like 25 years.
Either
or 30
25 or 50, yeah.
to do that, but then the taxes appear to be significantly less if you go into that program. And so it might be a win-win if someone was interested.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Info.
Any other staff report? When do we anticipate needing another meeting? Is there a reason for a January one that we're aware of?
No,
Okay.
I am not aware of the need for a
We're
January.
gonna do our annual public
Listening session?
open house or listening.
Good question.
Very good question.
Good question.
What months do you generally do that, in April or
Well, I
March?
think last year, was it March?
Yeah, January, February, March, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
I
February.
don't think it was,
It seemed like it was more
I
like
was
March
here,
or
so it
April,
wasn't
wasn't it?
January.
yeah, it was,
Later.
yeah, it could have been April. Yeah.
Okay, well, we can certainly plan on that if,
Yeah, let's work on that.
okay.
Trying to think whether we want one every other year or every year.
Well, we have an election this year, Roger, so we want one this year, I think.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there's an election this year.
There is?
Yeah.
Okay,
That'll be very,
Definitely.
very good.
Definitely.
okay.
there an election?
Is there an election? Every year there's an election in Fitchburg.
Yes, George, that means you have to run for the seat to maintain your seat on Ag Rural.
I'd like
I
to,
hope you
My
got your
hip is
campaign put together
killing
and you
me.
filed your papers.
I'd like to say, Chad, you followed up on our question at our last meeting regarding the tax implication of our solar deal, and you sent out that video?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
want to just compliment you on following up on that. That video answered all the questions that I had
Great.
about where Fitchburg fits with the solar tax issue. And it was very good and appreciated.
You're welcome.
Do we want to try to set a date for the outreach? What month do we want to do that? And venue?
We
Sure
did have
enough, I know.
Four Winds Farm last year, right?
Yeah, we'll try to have it there again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Okay,
very nice.
fantastic.
I left my darn phone at home.
Did you work with Mary Ann on that last year? You wanted?
Randy and I did.
Oh, okay.
Mary Ann and Mark,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, the manager.
Do you guys want to check with them again and see if they're willing to host? And so I think we would probably want to stick with our third Tuesday, ideally. Not that it necessarily matters, but if they've got one of those that works in March or April.
Yeah,
We could stop out there and visit with them to find out what dates are available and work backwards from there.
Yeah.
Maybe get 2 or 3 dates and then work backwards into our schedule.
And then we would have our meeting first and then the listening session second. Is that how we did it?
check out their hops.
Yeah, if we have any items that we have to act on, we'll do that first and then open it up to the listings.
That makes it legal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes it
Yeah.
legal. We will find,
Yes,
we will
we
find
do.
something to work on.
Well, no, we don't. No. We can do a listening session if we want to. We don't have to have an action item. But if we do, in some years we have, and some years we haven't had action items.
Oh, yeah, well, see, it's sponsored, sort of sponsored by a city committee.
What you can't do that you want to do is have a candidate forum. That's the part that you can't do as part of this. You might be able to do it after we're done
Oh,
with
meeting
it.
we
yeah,
need to
we
terminate.
adjourn, we
We've
adjourn, when
adjourned.
it becomes a
Yes.
public meeting.
But whether or not
Pack
we
all
have
this
an
stuff
action
up.
item for that month doesn't matter. If we
guess
want to
you're
have a
right.
listening session,
Good
Yeah.
point.
we can do this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then we're,
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes
why
it's
not?
easier not to have an action item because then you don't need to have that,
The meeting.
the
and-
business portion of the meeting.
Be checking out their hops.
so it does not become an ag and rural affairs
Of course,
sponsor anything about it then.
No. It's a meeting of this group, but all it is basically a public hearing. The whole meeting then is a
Oh,
public
as a-
hearing
under
if
a
you don't
public
have any
hearing.
action
Okay.
items. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we'll see if we
We'll
have
see
one.
we'll see what dates we might be able to find.
Sure. Okay. Any other announcements from anyone? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
motion, we adjourn?
Was that a second, George?
Sure, that's a second.
Okay. Randy?
All in
and
favor?
George.
Aye. Opposed? No one's ever opposed to that. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.